going to call the meeting to order, and I'll invite you to stand for the Lord's Prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, good morning. Number 2.1, recognition of the speech winners from the Westglade School.
Good morning. These are our 4th, 5th, and 6th grade winners from Westglade School, and they would like to share their speeches with you this morning. I don't think they're more than a couple of minutes.
That's great.
So first up is Aiden Gonzalez, and he is our 6th grade winner. And he is one of the most hardworking and sweetest students that you'll ever meet.
First generation denoting the first of a generation to become a citizen in a new country, or the first of a generation to be born in a country with immigrated parents. The first generation girl is my mom. My mom's parents immigrated to the United States in 1970s from Mexico. Here's a little background knowledge on my grandparents. My nana got pregnant at 14 and she quit school. She later went back and got her GED at the age of 20. My papa crossed over from Mexico when he was just 12 years old with a group of town friends. He has no education background and can barely read and write. The only thing my papa knew was to work, and you guessed it, work. And if my mom misbehaved or got bad grades, he would take her on a field trip to work in an orange grove in the hot sun. My papa never let a day go by without reminding my mom to appreciate the life she had and the education she was receiving. Getting a high school diploma was my mom's all-time goal, so she could be the first generation girl to get a high school diploma and make her parents proud. After high school, my mom went to college for 2 semesters and quit. She had been working at Salco Pizza since she was 14 and landed an office job at 18. Working full-time became a bigger priority than school. A past teacher reached out to my mom and motivated her to finish college at the age of 25. She graduated with her AA degree. She did it, y'all, the very first college graduate of the whole family. However, she didn't stop there. My mom says that lots of praying led her to go back to college and pursue a bachelor's degree in elementary education. As many of you know, my mom struggled to become a certified teacher. It took my mom multiple times to pass these exams. Failure filled my mom's heart with sadness and made her second guess herself if she was even meant to be a school teacher. But she never gave up. She wanted to make sure that my sister and I knew the lesson that there are setbacks in life, but that doesn't mean to give up. In 2020, she finally passed her exams, and there she did it again, the very first college graduate in the whole family to receive a bachelor's degree. The lesson of resilience motivated my mom to keep going. This past December, she graduated from FGCU with a master's degree. My sister and I watched in admiration as she worked hard to cross the finish line. This first generation girl has taught me, my sister, and many others life lessons and good moral values. She laughs. It might take her 7 times to pass a test, but this girl never gives up and finds a way to inspire others to do the same. Thank you.
Aiden's mother is Glades County's current Teacher of the Year.
You didn't tell us we were going to cry.
I was going to say.
We are not.
And next we have Parker Dillman. Parker's a 5th grader at our school, and Parker just scored a perfect score on the math test.
Hello, my name is Parker Dillman, a 5th grade student at Westglade School. Today, I would like to share my beliefs about shortening the school week. I believe that our first weekend should occur on Wednesdays. I feel confident that implementing this idea will help all students, teachers, and staff. From my personal experiences as a student, by Wednesday, I am very tired because of the intense amount of learning and classwork that has been completed. So adding an extra break in the middle of the week would help make students feel less tired and more focused when they are present. I also feel that teachers would benefit from this because teachers become more exhausted throughout the school year. Having a break from work in the middle of the week would allow teachers to recharge and get their best when students are present. But you might be thinking that 4 days isn't enough for students to learn everything that is planned. But because of the extra energy provided by the midweek break, it would allow students to work harder and more efficiently on their assignments. The school staff would also benefit from this as they would have more energy to do their jobs effectively. For example, the principals would be able to help their school and deal with more students and parents. Paras would be able to help students at their exact level and have enough stamina and patience to work the full time that they help. Now, you might be asking why it should be on a Wednesday. On Monday and Tuesday, students, teachers, and staff have the energy to work on those days. So by having the day off would be a waste since everybody has the energy to work. This idea would also help save schools energy and money. By having the day off, schools would not use as much water, light, and climate control such as AC in heating for the buildings. This would in turn save energy and money because you have to pay for those services and they cost a lot. So even a day a week would help save the world and save the school money. It would also help out families whose schools follow this schedule. This is because on the day off, families could spend time together, eat out, or just relax. In conclusion, implementing this bold initiative would help students, teachers, and staff be more effective and more focused. It would help save worldly resources and save our school district money. And save students and teachers from experiencing exhaustion and burnout. Wednesdays could become the day for all the doctor's appointments, vet appointments, car repairs, and extracurricular activities. Just think about it. Yesterday was Wednesday. Where would you have liked to be? What errands would you have liked to run? Could you benefit from an extra day of rest? If it were my choice, on Wednesdays I would be at home relaxing.
All right, Miss Allen, I think you should vote on that right now.
Yes.
Amendment to the agenda.
And last but definitely not least, we have Dawson Barnes. She is a sassy little competitive cheerleader.
Hi, I will be talking about cheerleading for my presentation. The reason I picked cheerleading is because I belong in a competitive cheer team. It is called Top Gun. Our team has placed first in all of our competitions in Florida. A lot of people don't know this, but cheerleading all started with men. The whole reason it started with men is because women were mostly excluded from cheerleading until the 1930s. An early opportunity to join squads appeared when large numbers of men were deployed to fight in World War I, leaving open spots that women were happy to fill. Now I will tell you the positions in a stunt. First, there's a flyer, which is in the air like flying, which is being held by a base. A base is someone who holds the fire's feet so to be flying in the air. And last is the back spot. The back spot is someone who holds the flyer's legs. The first cheerleader in the U.S. was Johnny Campbell. On November 2nd, 1998, standing in front of a crowd of sport fans, Johnny Campbell, a medical student, started conducting the cheer on a spur of the moment. He was so affected that the team won and he made the history as the first cheerleader. Now the guy who invented competitive cheerleading. It was 1882 Princeton University graduate Thomas Pebbles took this idea to the University of Minnesota that, as we know, cheerleading was about to start. What is competitive cheerleading, you ask? Competitive cheerleading is when cheer squads compete against each other at a competition. At a typical cheerleading competition, teams perform a 2.5-minute routine with music that includes stunts, jumps, and tumbling. Teams are judged by a panel of cheerleading experts on difficulty and education. The winner in each division gets a trophy and bragging rights. All types of cheerleading teams have the option to compete, but not all school-based cheerleading squads are competitive. School teams perform routines with cheer signs, pom-poms, and microphones that showcase their sign skills along with an entertainment section to music. My opinion, cheerleading is great.
When will there Is that the contest that they're gonna compete in
May
here?
16th.
On May 16th at the Dole Connor Building?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, that's another reminder of why we're all up here.
Chairwoman, can I make a comment?
Yes.
So Ms. Stokes called me and asked me to judge the Tropicana speech. I think Ms. Prolong, weren't you a judge?
I was a judge.
Okay. And she asked me to do it, and I've seen those competitions many times as a teacher, and I was like, there is no way I'm gonna judge that competition. And I told Ms. Stokes, you try to find someone else. If you can't find anyone else, then I will do it. But that's the reason I didn't wanna judge it, because you guys just were awesome. And it's so hard to choose the winner of those things. But I could feel your heart and soul, and I appreciate your hard work. And you did all three of you did a perfect delivery job, so thank you. And I bet your mom helped you write that one, didn't she? Just kidding. Just kidding.
I confess, she did help a little.
She's amazing, and
All of your struggles, you know, what
Yes.
she did.
yes.
It was my privilege to go out to West Glades and help judge. I wasn't the only judge, and it was very difficult, Ms.
I
Ray,
know it is.
to decide who, I mean, we didn't decide who was best. We put points down, but you kind of want to give everybody 10 points on every section. And and there were some others that were awesome speeches. It's just too bad we can only have 3 because there were really some good speeches. And thank you for inviting me or allowing me to come.
Anybody else? Okay, 3.1. Approve minutes of the Glades County School Board regular meeting, April 6, 2023 at 9 a.m.
I move to approve those minutes with a minor clerical change that Ms. Smith is going to make for us.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Uh,
3.2, approve minutes of the Glades County School Board regular meeting, April 20th, 2023 at 6 p.m.
I move to approve the minutes of the Glades County School Board regular meeting, April 20th, 2023 at 6 p.m.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
4.1, approve the March 2023 finance reports and warrant register.
I move to approve the March 2023 finance reports and warrant register.
Second.
Any discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Item 5, public comment on agenda items. Any comment cards? Okay. Number 6, information items, Heartland Electric presentation for electric busing.
All right, good morning. We have some of our friends here from FTS, Board of Transportation Systems, and from Highlands Electric, and they're going to be talking to you a little bit about their program for the possibility of using the grant money we received to purchase electric buses. So I just, before they start, I just want to remind the board that we actually had applied for a grant. This is a federal grant from the federal government, of course. It is, and in order to receive that grant, you had to meet certain criteria. You had to be a rural district. You had to have a high poverty rate, and it helped if you actually were transporting Native American students as well. There were two other counties in Florida that received this grant. We were the third. The other 2 were up in the Panhandle, very socially economic challenged districts as well. The next step, I should say, when we applied for this grant, an electric bus was costing about $375,000 for an 83-passenger bus. Since then, the cost of the bus has gone up to a little over $400,000. So, as part of the grant, we would have to pay the difference in what the original price was a year ago to what the price is right now. Now, as I talk about electric buses, the background should be that right now we have 19 school buses, and of those 19 school buses, over half of them are over 10 years old. And there are a couple of those buses that we count in there that are actually not usable right now, more used for parks than anything. So this is an opportunity for us to improve our transportation department. It's an opportunity for us to do something very good for our students. What we should know is that these buses will come with air conditioning. We currently only have 3 buses that have air conditioning. We can also use this money to purchase handicap buses and with a lift. We currently have 2 buses that have a lift, one full-size bus and one smaller bus. The smaller bus, and Jim, you might help me with this too, I think it's a 2003 and doesn't have air conditioning in it. And we're trying to put air conditioning into it. We are having an influx of special needs students. So this year and next year, we see a whole bunch coming that we're going to have a need for buses. When we look at purchasing buses for next year, actually you should realize that we purchase usually 1 bus per year. That's all we can afford. Our millage rate, 1.5 mils, equals about $1.2 million right now. And diesel school bus that we purchased cost about $160,000. And we have to remember that the millage that we receive, that 1.2 million, that's capital outlay money that is used for things like purchasing buses, but it's also used for replacing air conditioners, repairing roofs, or any kinds of repairs. If a tractor goes down, to repair a tractor, it's not a lot of money. As we go into this coming year, we have received funding. Well, in the appropriations bill right now, it looks like we are pretty much a shoe-in for $34 million from the state in order to build a new school, a new elementary school, a new transportation department, to renovate some of the buildings at the elementary school for offices, and also to raise the old elementary school. As part of that plan, we know that we're going to have to pay over the next few years 3 mills back to the state. Now they're going to give us $34 million, but we have to repay $3.6 million it could be over the next 3 to 5 years. So really what we're saying is if we pay back 1 mil per year over the next 3 years, 1 mil would be about $765,000, which would leave us with about $500,000 in order to do all the things we want to do. There is a new bill, I believe, that says that now we may have to share some of that money with our charter school as a percentage basis, and they're about 20% of our school's students, and so 20% of that $500,000, which would be $100,000, would go to the charter school, actually limiting our monies quite substantially. And that's going to happen until we pay off this school. And I know that the board is very interested in paying. We could actually pay less than 1 mil. We can pay as little as half a mil, but do it over the next 6 years. But I know that I should say I know, but I have a pretty good idea that the board is very interested in building another building at the Westglades location. And if that's to happen, we're only going to be able to do that through special facilities funding. A building, an 18 classroom building, right now it's going to cost a little over $10 million. With the money that we have coming in from taxes, it would take us 10 years in order to accumulate enough money to build a building, and we wouldn't be able to fix anything in the district. So special facilities funding is probably the way that we're gonna have to go in order to expand at West Glades. And I know you'd like to look at expanding at West Glades, because right now, West Glades is at 94% occupancy, which is well over the 85% that the state recommends. Actually, when we talk about open enrollment, after we get 85%, we usually shut down open enrollment. And I can tell you right now that I'm in charge of open enrollment, and we have almost 80 new students who are applying for open enrollment for West Glades for next year as of 2 days ago. So just a little bit of background with this. We're going to have to make a decision. You're going to have to make a decision on if we're going to go forward with utilizing these dollars. With that $375,000, we could actually buy a smaller bus, and then we wouldn't have to pay the difference. We choose to use the bigger buses because, quite honestly, there's a driver shortage, and we need the seats on the bus in order to do the routes. We're in a situation as of today where at West Glades, they had to do a double route because we have a shortage of drivers. One driver was sick, and so one driver did a route, came back, went back out, and had to get some other students. They came a little bit later than they're usually doing. So we can do those things. We can buy a smaller bus. This is the reason why we're trying to go with the 83 passenger buses. This is an opportunity for us, like I said, to really enrich our transportation department. But it's a grant, and we don't have to use it. If you choose not to use it, there's probably a good chance that we're not going to be able to afford buying another school bus until we pay off the millage that we owe to the state for the next 3 years.
And tell me again, what's the estimated repayment amount in dollars?
For what?
We get the 34 million special facilities, and we have to pay back 3 mils.
Correct.
Which is about how much?
About 3.6 million. That's where, we'll get the exact figures here pretty soon.
Madam Chairman, may I ask a question? What is going to be the total cost of the difference if we go with the bigger buses?
If we go with the bigger bus, it's going to cost us about $40,000 per bus.
40,000 times how many buses?
We put in for 13 buses.
So 40K times 13.
That's right. But there is some financing that the Highlands is going to talk to you about as well with that. But, we don't have to purchase 13 buses. If we choose just to do the West Glades site and do 7 buses or 8 buses, we can do that. We don't
So
have to
they'll
do
let
the
us
whole
buy
grant.
fewer.
Yes.
Madam Chair. So also, is it understood that however many electric buses we bring in, we must get rid of those diesel buses?
Yes.
In the same,
Anything that's older than 10 years is eligible for us to dispose of. And I say dispose of, we would probably sell some of those buses. Some of those would scrap. I mean, there's a couple of them that are just scrap. But if we buy 8, then we replace those 8 old ones that aren't working so well. Yes.
Do we know, or roughly know what the charging stations are gonna be per bus? And are we 100% responsible for that?
They can tell you more about that. Within the grant, we will receive $20,000 per charging station per bus.
Okay.
So if we have eight buses, then we would get $160,000 towards charging stations.
Oh, I thought it was as much as 40,000, okay, for the
Right.
charging station.
Well, you can kind of figure it that way, because the charging stations usually will charge 2 buses at the same time.
Okay. Okay.
Madam Chair, I have another question.
Go ahead.
I forgot what it was. I was waiting intently.
I had something I was gonna say too, and I forgot to.
Yeah,
so-
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to ask, the buses that we have to take out of commission, can those still be used for games, sports,
No.
travel? Can't be used for
No,
anything?
we have to
Okay.
dispose of it.
Okay.
We, of course, are going to keep diesel buses. We have some routes that are much too
long.
for an electric bus. Also can be used for athletic games and stuff like that. Of course, our new buses, they're being used for that right now anyway. We're not saying that we would get rid of, we're not looking to get rid of diesel buses totally by any means.
Right.
We're not at that,
But this is not gonna increase our number of buses?
no. It's
Okay.
not. It's just gonna upgrade it substantially.
Madam Chair, the one thing that I would like to say is that I want to keep going back on what Mr. Gressett said, that we have 15 buses that are over 10 years old. That's substantial. A fleet that is that old, it becomes it really starts straining on us as far as getting parts and maintenance of those buses. And so I think that's another thing that the board needs to consider.
Was that the number? That's not what I wrote down.
I'm sorry, half of our buses, well, we have 19 buses now.
About 10?
Yeah, about
Okay.
10.
So how many
I
are
have this
more than
figure
10
sheet.
years old?
10, I think.
Well, we have to have at least 13, or so I'm gonna say 13, yeah, I should have brought that with me, but we wouldn't have asked for 13 if we didn't have 13 that
Gotcha.
weren't more than 10 years old.
Okay.
And only 3 with air condition.
It's just, it's, when this first came to us, and I've talked to you personally about this,
Right,
it wasn't gonna cost us anything.
right.
And that was why I personally was excited. But now it's shifted, it's changed, it's actually going to cost us, $500,000.
If we buy that many buses,
Yeah,
correct.
so,
But like I said,
I've
we're-
gotta have a shift up here before I can swallow that.
Well, and we're actually working with 3 groups. Highland's gonna speak today, there's been a group called In Charge, and also FP&L has contacted us about doing these same kinds of things. And they're looking at helping with, they're expanding with the financing of them. They also would, within that financing, would look at being in charge of the maintenance of these buses. If a bus goes down, they would pay us back for the use of a diesel bus. If like the battery goes, if the battery's bad or whatever, they replace the battery. We're in a situation where we really miss Doug Menke. Doug was an amazing mechanic who kept some of these old buses going. We have a young mechanic right now who's doing a great job, but he is busy all the time. And finding mechanics, decent mechanics, is incredibly hard. That's all over the state. So, that's just an added plus if we were to go with one of these programs, that they would be actually in charge of all the maintenance of the buses.
And just to add, I don't want to put anybody on the spot here, but this isn't a new concept. I know Mr. Brickle, I believe, was working on this, how many years ago, Mr. Brickle?
Seems like 1,000. It's been 3 years ago. I was working on this.
So this isn't a new concept. I think this is, I think that it's gained some attention. And for us, it's come at a good time because of the condition of our fleet. It's an older fleet, and we, looking at trying ways to improve the district and to make us more efficient. So,
No, I think once we hear the presentation, that'll give us more information
Yes, it
and
would.
maybe
I agree.
we'll feel different about it.
Yeah, just
Some
want
of
to give
us.
a little background. All right.
Thank you.
Mike, will you on the screen with the laptop?
And
Lindsay.
yes, Lindsay.
Lindsay.
Yeah.
Everybody says Lindsay.
So is this Highland? Brian kept saying Highland.
It's Heartland. I don't know. Is this Heartland Electric or
Highland.
Okay, the agenda's wrong, okay. Thank you, Mrs. Browett.
So the name of the company is Highland.
Right.
Maybe it'll be on the screen.
Jenny, when we get to, I need your sewing items.
Can we get to the consent?
Okay.
Okay.
where is that? Anybody know?
Australia.
Where is it?
No.
Well, I don't know. I was. I know where it's at.
It's Australia.
That's what I've said, and I've never been there, but.
Looks like a fun place to be.
Yeah. Because there's some tall buildings on the left, though.
Highland. You're right, Highland.
Okay.
I actually think I want to invite the,
Yeah, I think the
panel
speaker out
panel
here.
here to the presentations.
You ready?
Is it?
There you go.
The bar was set very high, so. Yeah, thank you all for having us this morning. My name is Ben Foley, representing Highland Electric Fleets. I'm here with FTS, Mike Papa, and Neil Taylor. And we, together, Neil and I cover the Southeast region for our company. I come from, before I was working for Highland, I was working in renewable energy development. So my background is in more of the infrastructure space and sort of that energy generalist background. And I joined Highland really because what this company is doing to promote and really to promote electric vehicle adoption at a higher pace is what I'm really passionate about. I think there's a lot of misperceptions about these vehicles and their capabilities out there right now, and Highland was really established to really bridge the gap between what we see as like traditional fleet management and operations into sort of a more modern technology that I think is really suitable for the school bus market. So today, we've prepared just a few things to go through. This column objectives, but really just a number of things we want to highlight for you all. As Brian, I think, went through a bit of what we do as a company, but I would really like to explain how it benefits you all and how it really can impact you in the decision you're making now. Heard the initial questions, which I'll certainly address, but ultimately just want you to have a full picture of what we do as a company and why it's important for you all. So we'll start with an overview of our services, a bit of our history as a company, track record, other similar projects we've worked on in the EV school bus space, and then our overall experience can sort of speak to maybe some of your concerns, but also just what we've seen elsewhere, add a little perspective from our work with EVs. And then we'll talk a bit about what your options are. So you have what Brian mentioned is working with a few different vendors to think about how to absorb some of the cost, how to get the projects up and running, what long-term operations look like. So talk about those options. We'll do a brief financial comparison that compares sort of Highland's cost estimates for you all versus your other options that you may have, be it an independent electric vehicle project that's not on our program, or deploying diesel vehicles, which I know has been part of the discussion as well. And then, of course, just want to speak to the timeline. It's something you probably heard from your conversations with FPL and across maybe your in-charge discussions, but ultimately just want to give you a sense for what these projects look like on a deployment timeline. So our story is that, I mentioned it briefly when we first started, but the company was really founded around school buses and the adoption of EV school buses in school district fleets. The founders of this company saw a major gap and a lot of interest in electric school buses for fleet operators. And the places that we've built electric school bus projects and we're running now are really the first school districts in the country to adopt EV school buses. And you all, thankfully, will not be the very first to adopt EV school buses. You're able to sort of learn from experience and see what others have done, what this, trials and tribulations, successes have been. But our founding team really saw that there was a lot of demand for EV school buses. They, broadly speaking, have tremendous impacts on drivers. They have tremendous impacts on the community, children. There's a lot of interest driving this, but the technical challenges, the financial challenges, the operational forecasts, et cetera, there were just things that people are not comfortable with in deploying, especially for a school bus fleet, which the way Brian describes it is extremely sensitive to do. They need to be reliable, available every single day. You have an aging fleet that needs to be replaced, and if you're going to deploy a new technology, it's sort of a go with what we know. So our founding team said, why don't we put EV school buses on a program whereby all of those challenges can be solved by a simple contractual structure. And from there, they ended up really building the company around this project in Montgomery County on the very left. It says the largest electric school bus project in North America. They built the company on the back of that, which is more than a quarter of a 1,200 vehicle fleet being converted to electric school buses over time on Highland's program. So that is still the largest electric school bus project in North America. It's up and running now. We're about halfway through the deployment schedule. We'll deploy the other half of the EV buses over the next year or so. And then from there, we've worked on the first commercial electric school bus vehicle to grid program, maybe something you've read about. Could be the case here, not fully sure yet, but this is a tremendous feature of these vehicles, is that the school system can actually generate some revenue from them in times when they're not being used with charging technology, et cetera. But another accolade for our company. And right now, currently we have about 400 vehicles under contract across the United States and Canada, focused on North America, and specifically on school buses in school district fleets, public fleets. So this is, in a nutshell, really what we're seeing the transition look like. So this graphic, what it explains a bit of is what fleet operators with traditional diesel, propane, maybe even CNG school bus fleets have had to worry about. So it sort of explains that traditionally it's been fueling maintenance and vehicle operations for the fleet, predictable, and although the market has been challenging, I would say, for maintenance and parts and fueling on a diesel fleet, it is at least what they're used to. But then, with the introduction of electric, the skill set, the priorities, the challenges are unique and new for most fleet operators. And so what the company wanted to do was create a system whereby we could take most, if not all, of the operations and installation work from fleet operators and turn it into something that became our responsibility. So you'll see, I'll walk through the different stages of an electric vehicle project here soon, but what this is meant to show is that going electric as an independent school system taking on these challenges is going to be a completely new set of responsibilities for the transportation team and for other operators at the school. And what Highland tries to solve is to take all of that responsibility on ourselves so that the school system can focus on exactly what they do best, which is student transportation, day-to-day maintenance of the community and the students. So just wanted to give you all a sense for where we're working now. Obviously, our portfolio of school district contracts is primarily in New England and in the Mid-Atlantic. We've started expanding westward. We have an operational project in California. We have one out in Illinois, but my region here in Maryland and Virginia and Pennsylvania are the projects I've primarily worked on those. But ultimately, we are working actively in all of these regions, hoping to work in Florida, of course, with you all. And this is the area that Neil and I cover down in the southeast with Mr. Papa. And this just gives you a sense. All of these projects are different sizes, different scopes. They've been deployed at different stages. They even have different technology implemented. We're just a generalist company that wants to promote the adoption of EV school buses. So the two that are in the gold boxes are other EPA Round 1 awardees. So they're exactly like you all. They won a major grant award from the federal government in this round of the program. And with Highland, they are deploying those vehicles. So in Baltimore City, inner city school district, tremendous socioeconomic challenges, one of the primary winners of the award, one of two in Maryland that actually won an award, and they're deploying with Highland Electric. And then Hardin County in Illinois, same demographic characteristics, one of only a few winners in Illinois as well. They're deploying with us. And so I think Brian talked about it briefly, but there are only 3 winners in the state of Florida for this award. So it is a tremendous feat of the team to be selected for this award. It's a major grant. It's the largest single, I think, vehicle grant that's been given out to schools that we've seen in recent history. And although it does not fully cover the cost of the vehicle, given where prices are today, it does give you all a chance to at least deploy vehicles in this sort of controlled environment. So very elite, I guess you'd call it, or a selected list of awardees, but again, these are other customers we're working with. So this is something that some of the team have seen before, but I just wanted to run through briefly what our proposal would look like and what it includes. And so on the left side here, you have really what we do as a company. So it's equipment financing. It's the charging technology, the chargers themselves and the installation, all the electricity fueling costs, managed charging software, which will more or less manage the way that the vehicles work within their charging schedules, we install all the infrastructure, and then we put these vehicles on a long-term service contract whereby we would be reimbursing the school system for all the maintenance they did on them, and we would be guaranteeing uptime. So this is pretty much a key for what we've discussed with your team, is that ultimately what we're doing that I think is valuable is the maintenance portion of this, and then the long-term uptime. So you run your vehicles for what we've now heard is nearly 20 years. So these EVs are going to need to be workhorses for you all. They're going to need to be reliable over the course of time that you typically drive a diesel vehicle. So what we do is we assign performance guarantees to each EV, and what Brian mentioned is that we do have a system whereby when these vehicles are down for reasons that are within our control, we're reimbursing you on a per mile basis for running one of your spares. And so although you are getting a significant portion of your fleet in electric with this deployment, you'll still be keeping diesel vehicles, and if the electrics are not performing as intended, according to the duty cycles and the routes you need, we put into the contract a damages payment from our company. So really trying to stand by the efficacy and reliability of the technology and give you all the comfort and sort of what that looks like long term. So just briefly to go line by line, we've looked at your depots a number of times. We've worked briefly with, you have a unique challenge in having two separate electricity providers serve each depot. So that is a sort of a unique nuance that we'll get into in just a few slides here. But the team wants to split the deployment, so they want to deploy a few at the Westglade site and a few at the Moorhaven site. We've assigned an annual service fee to each vehicle, which includes everything you're seeing in the fleet services contract here. The service term is meant to align with how often you all replace buses, so it's meant to be the full useful life of an equivalent diesel vehicle on the same route. And then again, just the bottom line, it's fuel, maintenance and software, operations, and then what's been mentioned briefly here is that we can provide a financing option if they want to help, if you all don't want to absorb that initial cost of the overage and the grant amount and the Type D bus. So it's an option, but it has not been included in the price you see here. Now, I did just want to walk through, because you've had presumably at other presentations and other sort of things focused on helping you all with the deployment, I did just want to walk through a few of the things you've probably seen and sort of put us side by side with what is available to you right now. And there are pros and cons to each, and what our company does well is bundling everything, because there are providers that you've probably heard from already met with that do certain pieces, certain aspects of what our company does. But there are really no other viable options, projects in operation that are doing everything that we are. So when you look at the different facets of an electric vehicle deployment, you see that there's the depot electrification, there's pulling service from the utility, the coordination of that, there's ordering of major equipment, there's a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done to get the system operational. There's the smart charging aspect, which is pretty much a software package that's assigned to each charger that communicates between bus and charger, that manages charging schedules, provides telematics, gives some data on vehicle operations and maintenance. I actually have some photos of what our software does later on, but just to give you a sense for that being part of the overall service offering from us. And then there's equipment financing, vehicle maintenance, and ultimately just this turnkey comprehensive solution. So what you're going to see from others is that they can do features of this, but when you decouple, what I refer to as when you decouple these processes, you do see that it will add a ton of time, I would say, and potential expense to the system. So you're going to have more or less staff focused full-time on making sure the depot is electrified, maintaining timelines, communicating with the utility. These are things that we'll go through here, but just a brief view, really, to what it would look like for you all to take on this project without a turnkey solution. So really, when you go down, we're trying to start here at sort of day zero and go all the way through to the end of the contract to the maintenance portion. But here, you start with just designing sites, and we've put together some site designs for you. We've actually kicked off some of this work already just for quotes and estimates and things, but again, just some of the work you have to do pre-planning. So there's utility engagement, which does traditionally take a bit of time. There's the design phase, there's engineering work that you need to do for each site. Typically, you're responsible for permits, pulling permits. There could be a construction management aspect, so you have to oversee this from the day you break ground all the way through to the system being fully electrified by the utility and connecting to the chargers. There's the ordering of the chargers, there's some compliance review, some legal work, budget, et cetera. These are just some examples of work streams that come with what we do as a company, but ultimately could become some of the responsibilities of potentially Brian or other members of the staff. And then beyond that, what I think is probably part of your concern is what happens over the course of 15 years. So although, the comment was made that if this was a free endeavor for us, then it would probably be more appealing. And though most of the system is paid for, it won't be entirely free. And ultimately, the electricity, it's less expensive than diesel fuel, but it will still cost some to fuel the vehicles, and it will still cost some to maintain them. And so what we do is we include that in our fixed price contract. But this just hopefully gives you a bit of a perspective on what a project would look like to build and then operate over time. Now, because primarily this is a cost concern, I did just want to give you two primary comparisons. So the sort of the charts I just went through give you some sense for the work streams and the costs you'd be responsible for as a school system, should you not choose to work with Highland. So the leftmost side of this chart shows what it would cost over the course of a 15-year agreement with Highland to run a vehicle. The right side gives you some perspective on the capital expenses at the very bottom of this bar, the capital expenses, charger and construction services that it would take to get the site built on a per vehicle basis, and then the operating expenses. And the key that I really want to communicate here is that we've put some band of uncertainty in the operating expenses for an EV, because should you not choose to work with Highland on our fixed price agreement, then you would be responsible for taking on some operating expense risk, some amount of unscheduled and unplanned out of warranty repairs. There are just a number of things that the school would have to be responsible for that risk without working with Highland. So what I summarize this graph by saying is that the choice is really financing the vehicles and infrastructure yourselves for those cost overruns, and then assuming the technology and operating risk over time, or working with the company, and that would be completely our responsibility. It's a risk that we absorb. So the question that I think came earlier was the charging stations. So EPA has awarded you approximately, they've awarded you $20,000 per vehicle for the infrastructure and the charger. What we've estimated here is that it will probably be closer to between 60 and 80, so net 20 would be for construction and the charging system that you would need for these routes. You'd be responsible out of pocket for probably about $60,000 per vehicle. And I do believe that's a conservative estimate. We're still looking at exactly the distance, some of the construction scope, et cetera, but because you run long routes, and these will be most of the vehicles in your fleet, you do need them available for some of the longer routes, so you want a higher power charger, and of course the higher power the charger, the more expensive it becomes. But either way, what we're showing you here is the out-of-pocket expense in year one versus, of course, on our service plan, what you would pay to the company, and then the 15-year total. And showing the range here gives you a sense for, because our contract is fixed price, the payment to Highland does not change versus taking on some of those costs yourselves if you take care. And then I did just want to add some perspective here too, because the out-of-pocket expense for the vehicle has been, I know, a little bit of a harder hill for you all to climb at this point. But really, if the decision were to be between deploying these electric vehicles with the grant versus deploying a new diesel vehicle, there's sort of two cost comparisons that I show. One includes the vehicle cost. So the figure was thrown out that this size diesel vehicle at this point is approximately $160,000. And then within your budget today, you're still responsible for fueling and maintaining that vehicle. Typically you have budget reserved for those payments each year. So on the left side of this chart is what we show is, including diesel bus purchase, EPA has already given you a tremendous opportunity to save money for the district. And on a fixed price contract, we can more or less say, even with residual vehicle costs, if there were some financing element to covering that cost, you would still be saving a tremendous amount of money versus deploying a new diesel. But on the right side, since you were awarded the full funding for the vehicle, we did want to show a bit more apples to apples comparison by saying, for our contract price target is to be budget neutral with what you're paying today to fuel and maintain vehicles. And so what we show here on the rightmost side is that even if you exclude the vehicle purchase price, you're still going to be saving a tremendous amount of money versus fuel and maintaining diesel at today's rates for those fees. And so just a high-level view of those forecasted savings, because they're forward-looking, is that on a per-vehicle basis, over the course of 15 years, you can be saving as much as $150,000. And then, of course, across 13 vehicles, this starts to become a tremendous impact. And then beyond that, even just on the OpEx side, could be as much as 30, maybe even more, $30,000 per vehicle. And then, of course, the savings accumulate because you're deploying so many versus diesel. So just to have you visualize it a bit, we did just wanted to put some of the basic site designs up here. It's seven vehicles at the site in LaBelle. It's another 6 at the site in Moorhaven. The chargers we've selected are these 30 kilowatt chargers. They're a bit less expensive than the higher power chargers, but they're probably still approximately at this point about $20,000 per unit. It would be 1-to-1. Each vehicle would have its own assigned charger, so that you have enough sort of redundancy on the site to protect against equipment failures. But again, it's just, I wanted to just give you something tangible that shows you how we laid out the deployment of each depot. And the key here is that because both sites are covered by different electricity providers, there's some lines that are a bit hard to see right now, but they do show that we are going to be pulling new electrical service from the utility provider to each site, because these vehicles do consume a tremendous amount of electricity. You need to pull dedicated new electrical service from the utility operator in order to be able to power each charging station.
Are there panels for that too? Solar panels?
So you do have a lot of space here down where you are, and you can put solar panels in and around chargers. It's sort of a little bit of a different consideration based on the charging schedule. Most often the vehicles will be charging overnight, which is typically the cheapest cost of electricity, so they wouldn't be consuming the solar energy they needed.
So it's not coming from solar, it's solely coming from the electric?
In this configuration, solely coming from the utility provider, but we have seen operators install panels that can provide some amount of energy coverage for the costs. So yeah, happy to look into it further after this.
I was just wanting to clarify.
Mm-hmm. So we just wanted to give you a sense for a basic timeline. We showed a little bit of a staggered timeline for different work streams, but this is a little bit more basic, and it gives you a sense for how things begin, how it starts. We, of course, the utility operator is traditionally one of the longer lead time items, just based on equipment orders, and they have grid planning and resource planning. They're extremely busy at this point, especially with all the energy development going on in your part of the country. They just have a lot to manage. So utility interconnection process is something we kick off very quickly. And then, of course, ordering equipment, just given supply chains across everything we're working on right now. We do order equipment early on. And then, again, we take on most of the work needed to get things up and running. And then at the very end, it's a training effort. So it's how do the chargers work? How are they maintained? What is the system going to look like working with Highland? What work can you do here? What work needs to go to the folks at FTS? It's a bit of a coordinated effort. So it's Highland staff on site here working hands-on with your staff to get you trained to understand the tech, to understand the vehicles themselves, to learn a little bit about the maintenance schedules. And then key to this entire effort is that payments to our company don't happen until the vehicles are operational. So when they show up on site and start running routes is when the contract is officially active.
So who's gonna, is there someone that's gonna come and help actually put the charging stations in?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
That would be our company.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure.
I'm a little sad that I didn't get that point across.
Well, you answered a few of my questions, so I was gonna ask who was gonna do the training with our diesel mechanics when we changed.
That's right. It's
You
a
already
combination
changed it?
of, yes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
FTS has a major operation here. They'll be the ones that are primarily responsible for walking through the manuals and getting training on moving things up and running. And then our staff will be here as well to coordinate that, but also on the charging side, on the software side, et cetera, troubleshooting, things of that nature.
Are you having any issues with, I know we have two separate electric companies. Do you foresee there being any issues with, say, us having Blades Electric or versus Florida Power and Light? Is that gonna cause any?
So far, it has not been a challenge. We've had really great conversations with both. They haven't raised any flags about the amount of power you need, nor have they communicated an unrealistic timeline. Their timelines are within our forecasts, and I don't foresee there being any challenges. The one thing I do want to mention is that Florida Power and Light is evidently offering a system whereby they would help with the charger installation, which is a paid product. They would add it to, I think, your energy bill, if I understand correctly. I don't want to speak to exactly what they do, but if that were a more efficient system, it's certainly something we can build into our proposal and offer it as well. So we can work directly with Florida Power and Light. You would be the energy customer as you are today, but we can coordinate that process too. So if Florida Power and Light were more efficient than us and our subcontractors, we would certainly build that in if it was a better cost, better price, better offers.
How is the fact that we're gonna be relocating our bus facility in the next couple years gonna play into this?
Well, that's actually two things that I was gonna bring up with Ben. Really what we would like to look at, excuse me, is just, if you bring up those locations again. Like where the site plan from LaBelle, really where you have your information box there on the top left, we're actually looking at building a depot just to the north of that. We own that property there, which is actually closer to electrical poles, so you wouldn't have to run lines this far.
It's very helpful.
And the site plan for Moorhaven, we would have to put in our I guess it would be our agreement as to how we're gonna do our funding and stuff. We have to give that to the federal government by the end of June. And within that, we would be telling them that we're gonna be moving our transportation depot to really behind us right now. And that there would be a year lag before we actually built those chargers into that station. But that shouldn't be a problem. I mean, like, it's kind of 50-50. And they're very close to where they're going to be. It's kind of like with the new school, we kind of had to have a placeholder as to generally where everything's going to go. That's what this is too.
Brian's throwing some curveballs today. No,
He's good at that. He's really good at that.
Yeah, he is. So we're sort of agnostic. It's your decision where they go. We'll be responsible for the construction budget. It's our cost, and it's included in what your pricing would be. But we're very flexible. We've developed so many different types of sites, tighter metropolitan areas, more rural sites. And as soon as we land on the final plan, I'm not concerned about the timing lag. We'll just have them stagger and show up ready.
Can I just want to add to that? So when we build these sites for like Montgomery, which is having over 300 buses, that's over, how many, 4 sites?
That's right.
It's 4 sites, but it's actually, in each site, it's in different parts of the sites. So we actually do all the digging and all laying the cable and conduit for the power right up front. So in the future, as we pull that through, we put the chargers up, as the buses land year 1, year 2, year 3, the cable's already under the ground. So we like to dig once, put everything in there. So with the site, if you're moving the sites and it's just moving it over a few hundred yards, we would actually make sure that everything's dug first time. And then when you move the site over, you can just make sure the power's there. So we've had a conversation with the utility to make sure that everything's set for that. So we try and think ahead with you, how you want to plan and grow it.
I have another question. I don't hear everything real well, but I thought I heard something about 60,000 per vehicle when you were talking about the charging stations. Can you clarify that?
Yes, ma'am. So typically the major cost, we price it on a per vehicle basis. Typically there's a charging station and then there's the construction, engineering and physical installation work that's done. So in the initial budget that we've seen, because you're doing two separate sites, I call it a conservative estimate because it's just something that we're sort of dialing in right now, but it would be approximately $20,000 per charger and between $20,000 and $40,000 for the installation. So those altogether could be as much as $60,000.
And is that covered by the grant, or is that something we'll have to pay?
So it's partially covered by the grant. If you chose to work with us or another company, then it's our expense. So we would finance all the construction work. So it's not out-of-pocket expense for you working with Highland. I can't speak to the other companies, how they set up their fee structure, but for us, it would be a cost we cover.
So the only out-of-pocket expense for us will be the difference between the original price of the buses and the new price of the buses, or is there something else that I'm not hearing?
So the out-of-pocket expense for the district at this point, working with Highland, would be just the cost difference between the grant and the price of the EV bus.
Okay.
But it's something that we've spoken briefly with your team about. We can cover that cost and include it in the annual warranty if you wanted us to. But we just hadn't really gotten to that late in the discussions.
Can we get a printout of your presentation?
Absolutely.
We'll leave it to Brian to distribute, so you can have
That's
that
fine.
copy of that. Okay.
May I ask a question? Thank you. But there is an annual fee, to answer Jean's question, of $15,500 that will pay the company. So we're gonna pay the difference in the bus cost, and then we're gonna pay you guys an annual fee, and it's said in there that it increases by 3% a year, which comes to, I did times 13 buses, right? It's 15 per bus.
That's right.
So that's $201,500 per year, correct?
That's right.
Okay. So it's the,
I don't know if it's right.
well, that's,
Sounds
yeah,
right.
yeah, well, I'm out, could be wrong. That was quick
We need
here
our-
on my
our
phone.
Perfect math test guy.
So the cost of the bus was gonna be 520, and then total 15 years would be another 201, is that right?
What's 520?
The, cost difference?
Okay. With that monthly fee though, that's including, they pay for the electric for that too, so we wouldn't be paying the diesel costs, so we'd be saving on the diesel costs for those buses.
How much?
It might cost $201,000, but we would have spent, we may have spent that much or more on diesel costs.
Their 15,000 includes our electricity cost?
Yes.
Yes.
They're gonna pay our
Another thing I
electric
wish I
bill?
could-
Yes, pay for those
Just
buses.
for the
So
buses.
we meter it all separately, so we
Okay.
pay that bill from revenue
Okay.
to us.
So that makes a lot more
And we
sense.
pay, so what you see and what you pay at the end of the year is absolutely covers all the fuel, all the maintenance, including tires, including windshield wipers, including your regular maintenance on a bus that you do today, and all that cost is already in your budget. And when we say cost neutrality, what we're saying is, today you have a budget for each bus, and those budgets go like this because, fuel prices go up, and then maintenance goes up, and parts are going up 10, 20% a year. Ours is 3% set. So we put 3% in there purely to cover inflation of power, maybe some of the maintenance parts like tires and things like that. But we lock it in at 3% instead of you all of a sudden having to come back to you, like Brian and the transportation team, Roberta, saying, hey, diesel's now $4 a gallon, or we need to, replace an engine in this diesel bus that's now $50,000. That's all covered. You don't see that anymore. Your budget is now locked in for 15 years on these buses. No surprises. One of these buses breaks down and the battery needs replacing, that's on us. You're not paying anything for that. If it's $50,000, that's on Highland.
I think that was some of the, when I have heard from different community members, that was a concern. They said, one of these batteries is gonna cost thousands of dollars, and I said, no, that's covered in this.
Yep, all covered.
I was worried more about the training for the people that were gonna be on
we cover all that, and we cover the time, all your maintenance guys training, and their time they work on the bus, it's all covered through us.
Where will those guys come from? Will they be here on site, or will they?
For training, they'll be
For
on site.
mechanics?
Mechanics, we train your current mechanics. And it's probably easier to find a mechanic to work on an EV bus now than it is to work on a diesel.
So
Yes.
our mechanics will have to be diesel mechanic and electric mechanics.
Yeah, most of the maintenance on the bus is the same maintenance. The only thing that changes on the electric bus is the actual running gear, you know, the battery and the electric motor. Everything else, the filters, the air conditioning, the seats, the tires, the brakes, are all what the mechanic does today. So really, we're just taking the engine away. So they don't have to worry about death and worry about, you know, all the things that go wrong, hoses and things like that on a diesel bus. They just don't have to worry about that anymore. All they have to worry about is the general maintenance of the bus, which is your state spec. Every 60 days, the bus comes in, fully checked out, all the type of things that they do today.
You made the statement, we still needed diesel, so.
Yeah, those guys will still work on the.
No, I'm talking about on the electric bus, how much diesel is used in that? No, okay, okay.
Yeah, it's not-
We still need diesel, but we still need diesel.
And some of the vehicles, you still use gas too.
Yes.
Okay.
How far will one of these buses travel
On one charge?
on one charge?
One charge is looking at about 100 to 110 miles of AC running.
Okay. And Brian, how long is our typical,
So the routes that we're going to be looking at right now, round trip is probably at most 60 miles. We had one that's maybe 80.
So you're gonna lose about half the battery in the morning run, and then when it plugs in between the morning and afternoon runs, it's been fully charged. The good news for you, if you order your buses by June, which you have to on the grant, you send for the grant. Bluebird's new bus that you'll get probably, well, you're looking at how long, about 10 months? About 10 months. Bluebird, the new they're upgrading their battery. So you'll have to have the newest running gear. They're on the 3rd generation Bluebird already. They started shipping these buses in 2017, mostly in California. And they're already on the 3rd generation. You get the 3rd generation. So it's probably 120 to 140 miles on a charge.
Okay.
So these buses every few years will take a jump, and you know, in 3 or 4 years it might be 150 miles. But it gives you flexibility on your routes. And
is that something that the company will update? Like, let's say in 5 years from now, let's say there's a new improved and it can go 160 miles. Is that something that is,
it won't be probably not backward upgradable for the bus you have today.
okay,
Or as you think about your fleet growing and your your flexibility with those diesel buses today, especially for the football teams and the sports teams, when they have to travel 200 mile round trip or 300 mile round trip to go to to events. Those buses will be longer range, and the infrastructure for charging will be everywhere. As you know, there's a state mandate and a federal mandate now for every 50 miles, it's got to be high-speed charge on every highway in America. So the buses are about to stop for, kids getting food, plug in, get the extra range, or plug in at the school, come back fully charged after a game. So that infrastructure will help the range and flexibility of the bus as well.
is that's a new state, that's a new national
It
law?
is, every highway in America, they've got to be charging stations every 50 miles.
Every 50 miles there has to be a charging.
50 miles.
Is that mileage loaded or unloaded?
That's loaded, fully loaded. Yeah. The great thing about these buses, and I know Ben mentioned very briefly, once your drivers drive on these buses, it's all over. They won't drive these again.
Yeah, Roberta, I did ask Roberta, and she actually had the opportunity to drive one, and she said it was a night and day difference. She said the quietness, she said it was amazing.
Pick up and go is amazing.
So we have had
It's
a
safer.
sample
Yes.
bus here?
Well, no, where did she went?
We went to
Tampa.
Yeah, I drove one too. Yeah, they're pretty amazing. Very quiet, very
Yeah,
quiet.
so the kids behave better because they can't, they'll shout over the diesel engine. They actually whisper a little bit more.
Have you met our kids?
Yeah.
If the windows are closed, that makes a
won't
big
scream as
difference
much.
too.
I had a chance to ride in an electric Mustang, and it
Oh.
just about threw me
It's incredible.
into the back of the seat when he hit that. I want to say when he hit the gas, but I guess when he hit the electricity.
school bus, believe
the
it or not, it
takeoff.
feels the same.
It was the ugliest Mustang I ever rode in, but had a lot of power.
You're a traditionalist.
So those schools that you've already installed
Yeah.
these buses in, how long, have they been in operation, a year, 2 years?
2 years. Montgomery's 2 years, right?
That's right. Montgomery
2
County,
years?
Our largest project has been in operation for 2 years, maybe a little more.
That was with
Some of them
Bluebird.
some of them are in the construction phase, some of them are in the operations phase. We have everything from that 2.5 2 year range to things that are just being built now. So,
Prior to me working for Highland, I worked for Bluebird. I worked on the EV side of the buses. So I've been deploying buses in California, Colorado, Canada, these electric buses for 4 years. So I've got a good history of understanding where we come from, whether how the buses are today compared to 4 years ago. The difference of, the software that runs the buses, the communication for Roberta. Roberta she can pick up a phone and check on every bus. How much charge is left on it, how many miles. She can check if the driver didn't plug the bus in. So before she leaves, she can just say bus number 37 isn't plugged in. So that, no drivers turning up in the morning at 6 a.m. without a fully charged bus. So the software is all about, making sure that your transport director and your team understands where everything is, everything's running correctly. If there's maintenance to be had, it tells, it sends a message, maintenance due in 100 hours, so you got everything planned. It's just so nice.
What about the capability to use them as a charging station, like in the case of like a hurricane, as a generator?
Yeah.
Can you address that to the board just a little bit?
So these buses are big. Think of the battery is about 150 kilowatts, and you can run a school overnight on that bus. You can go to an event where you basically, if there's a hurricane coming, make sure the bus is fully charged, drive to the school, have adapters plugged in to charge cell phones so the police can use it to with their monitors and things like that. So it's just the flexibility to think hurricanes come in, this big bus becomes an asset, not a problem. You can fully charge, you can bring kids to the school, this emergency center, and then plug the bus in to help back up generator to the bus, to the school.
And you can sell electricity back to FPL too.
So during the summer when these buses are parked, Boston facility up in Beverly, Massachusetts, they made $2,000 to $3,000 per bus per summer. How much was it?
yeah, that's right. It's about $3,000 last summer.
So each bus was parked, was made $3,000 over the summer that went back to the school district.
Tell them how that works.
So the bus itself, so the software on the bus tells the grid, like FPL, hey, I'm parked, it's 8 p.m., I'm fully charged, I have to be ready to go at 6 a.m. for my route, but you can use some electricity on my bus, and I will actually pay you to take that electricity, because most electricity problems start with a little blip, a little like somebody charges, a transformer goes down, and there's a drop in capabilities, and that has a knock-on effect. The bus is like a light switch. If I can just use you for a couple of minutes to smooth out that problem, then I don't have a bigger problem after it. I'm willing to pay you a lot of money to have that bus available. So FPL and Duke Energy and these companies are looking at these buses as a way just to help the grid when needed. And when the buses are parked and you need a little bit of power, they'll pay for it. And the software tracks all that. It shows you how many times it's off charge, how much you've got. You can run a report every month, bring to the board meeting, and say out of that 15,500, Crystal, we've got $3,000 back. We're only paying 12,500 for this year.
Is there a contact person in one of these districts where they've been in use for a couple of years that Ryan can call and talk to that person?
Yeah, so we want to share the list, and actually another superintendent as well, up in Illinois. Just anybody from transportation to school board, superintendent, if you wish to speak to anybody who's worked with Highland, we've already shared some names, but we'll have to share more if you want to contact them. This is a relationship. This is not Highland coming in, building a depot and disappearing. This is Highland coming in, building a depot and helping you run the depot for the life of the bus. So it's a safety net built in that most of the time, it'd be nice to build a house and say, well, the builder's always ready for you. If there's a problem with a house for 25 years and come and fix it. That'd be fantastic. But they don't give you 12 months to find a crack, find something wrong with it. and then it's all on you. The problem with the roof, you've got to cover it. Problem with the roof on this bus, we have to cover it. So it's just nice to have that partnership where you've got transportation supported by a company that sole goal is to make sure the buses run great. The kids are picked up on time, dropped off on time, and not breathing in diesel. Simple as that.
Yes.
Quick question, on the grant that we were funded for was for the Generation 2.0 buses, and we're getting the 3.0?
Yeah, it's basically, didn't specify a generation bus, it just says we'll pay this amount of money for you ordering an electric bus.
But
When-
within the year, that jump has just become from that 1 year of updating that bus, right?
The jump in price was nothing to do with the update of the bus, it was purely on costs that have gone up for everything you can imagine, you know, in building a bus. Steel prices are up, you know, the price of the tires on the bus, everything's up.
So it wasn't just the new generation of it
It was
being a
nothing to do
better
with
bus
that.
and
They
better
actually,
than the last year?
there was no cost difference between the generation. Basically, the batteries, when I started with Bluebird, were costing about $500 per kilowatt hour. And these batteries are 150 kilowatts, so it's $500 times 150 was the cost of that battery. They're now about $350 a kilowatt hour, and they're dropping next year to about $250, which is why they put a bigger battery at the same price, because the cost of the cells have come down. So that'll continue to happen. Hopefully in 10 years' time, 15 years' time, it'll be the same price of diesel.
Do you have any other buses in South Florida or in hurricane-prone districts?
So as a company, Bluebird and FTS have buses at Broward that are running today. They just got them running for They got delivered.
18 of them out of 60 are there.
Yeah.
So the charging, when you plug them in, a lot of times it's raining or if there's standing water, is there gonna be problems with?
There's no concern there at all. You can get a rainstorm, plug these things in. They're designed to work in all weather, snow, ice, heat, full safe.
I'll go back, I know the cost of the bus is a big sticking point right now, I think, but, you know, we have up to we can use $370,000 per bus. It's not a lump sum or whatever, $375,000 per bus. If we chose to go with a 77 passenger bus instead of an 83 passenger bus, we can do that. And the difference in that might be, it's probably about $5,000 per bus.
That sounds more reasonable to me.
can
I mean,
do this
because this is
because-
brand new water, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is uncharted water for us.
Because what I'd like to do is I'd like to buy some handicap buses if that was possible, you know, with a lift. I don't know if they have those new buses, but
Yep.
they're gonna be a smaller bus and they're gonna cost as much as an inch passenger.
Will we still have enough, if you lowered that, seating capacity to the 77, would that be enough to transport all of our kids?
It would, we may, I mean, right, as we are
'Cause
right
that is
now,
the
with
sticking
with the
point for
number
me.
of bus drivers we have, it would be difficult. Those extra 6 spots make a big difference. If we're able to get 1 or 2 more bus drivers, then yes. that would-
Might be able to.
So that difference is only 6 kids.
6 kids, that's right.
So from a small
Well,
bus to a big
and
bus,
just so you know,
$5,000 and only 6.
It's not even 6, it might be 4. When they discuss how many passengers can fit on the bus, they actually will tell you 3 kids can sit on a bus. And they go by what they call butt width, okay?
Like elementary butt or high school butt?
So that's the thing, they don't.
So-
There's not a difference in the high school
So the
bus.
3 kindergartners can fit in that seat, whereas 3 high schoolers cannot. They have a different butt width. So, I mean, that's actually the correct term. So really, you're looking, in most cases, maybe 4.
39-inch seat, they give you 13 inches
Yeah.
per butt.
What's the capacity of our buses, our largest buses now that we have on
So 80.
the road?
We have 84s.
So if we get an
Some of them
84,
are full, too.
I wanna make sure I understand this, I'm sorry, Jean.
No, that's okay.
If we get an 84 seater,
83.
83 seater, they're gonna cost us $40,000
They say
more.
415,000 for the 77 passenger, you're looking at 392.
Yeah, so it'd be about 17,000 for a 77 passenger bus. be about 40,000 for a,
Almost half.
yes.
We could save almost half.
But we could mix and match.
But it would
Yes.
still
We
be
could get a
70.
couple of 84 and if we,
Yeah,
I would
but,
recommend.
but I believe the way the funding is, you have 375 per bus. You can't say, well, let's do a small bus and a big bus and put that money together
Right.
and make it 750,000. It doesn't work that way. It's
I
per
understand
bus.
that, but you could,
But if you
we
bought a
could
couple
say,
handicap
okay, we're
buses,
willing to
you
pay $40,000 if we can get 3 of these
That's
big
correct.
buses.
Yes, ma'am.
But then we don't wanna spend 40,000 on the other 10,
Right.
so we'll
You can
get
do that.
70,000.
Yeah, absolutely.
And is the handicap bus cost different?
It's gonna be slightly different, because we don't know what's going on with how many 77s and how many 84s are
Okay.
needed. If it's a lift bus, just a guess, I'd probably add another 6,000 to that
Okay.
number.
You're gonna lose some seats.
You're
Right.
gonna lose some seats, that's the whole,
Which is fine.
Right.
Would the handicap bus have to be 77? Is there not a smaller version?
I think you have a 65.
Like, is there like a,
There's not electric.
it's not electric though. Not yet. And that's why I think I said that. If you
Was
wanted
the
to
Type A, which is only, what, 20?
29, but
With the lift.
yeah.
Oh, so there is a smaller one.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to get a smaller one. Which is-
Yeah, if you can get a smaller one, and they're like two, probably the lift, probably 275, but the
Okay.
Type A, the smaller bus with the handicap bus, that's a win. You can do that as well.
We could definitely use 2 of those.
yeah,
Appreciate
definitely.
that.
Okay. You're saying no?
You can't switch to a smaller vehicle.
That's the full size, yeah.
That's the full size.
Okay.
So it has to be like 77, that's the full
The
size.
seat-
The grant.
Yeah, then change it to see, that's what, yeah.
Okay. Well,
So you're saying the grant won't cover a small bus?
The grant would cover a small bus,
Oh.
but you have 90% sure that you're not supposed to change the technology to a smaller vehicle with the grant, or you can size up and then you can size down.
yes. give me-
So what we're thinking about, I'm sorry.
You guys are all thinking about it the right way with the mixing the size of the deployment, the different vehicle types, et cetera.
That will work.
That would-
Yes.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
We're talking about the Type A bus and some of this covers, so we'd have to look at an option on a Type C, conventional with the lift, just lose some seats.
Well, we can do a separate charging station for them,
4 seats per.
could we not?
You know,
For the smaller buses.
That's right.
Right.
And this big
Just in different types.
So it could be that it would probably be the same technology, but
Okay.
each vehicle in what we've drawn up here has its own charger.
Okay.
yes.
Mr. President, so how many, with the permit allotted buses at each school now, how many diesel buses will there be at each location?
We would probably keep 2 at Westlake, and really all their routes can be covered with electric buses at Westlake. We would probably keep two diesels there in case something broke down or for field trips and stuff like that. And then we'd probably keep 4 over here.
So either way, for field trips, sports, anything like that, the kids will still be covered for transportation.
Yes.
I'm not sure when they're putting the 50 miles in for charging stations, but I'm gonna assume that's gonna be down the
A
road.
few years, yeah. It's, but it's gonna be 2-3 years down the road for us.
And you're comfortable with us being covered for field trips, transportation, getting kids home to and from school, as
Yes.
well as there being field trips and sports
Because
events on top
yeah,
of
the
that?
electric buses would just be for those shorter routes. I mean, the diesel ones would still do the large routes and do the field trips and stuff like that. We're not doing away with diesel buses.
Right, I just wanted to check how many would be at each location.
Right.
Oh, no, she's talking about how many diesels?
Oh, diesel.
2 backups at Westlake and then the rest of the diesels.
Okay.
May I ask a question?
You can come to the podium. You have 3 minutes. And you need to fill out a card before you leave.
Okay, yes, ma'am, be glad to. My name's Jeff Patterson, live at 1350 Wagon Trail for the record. I'm involved in a lot of equipment sales, repairs, things like that. I do work for a shop and used to run a couple myself. I'm in sales right now. I've noticed, and I don't know if maybe this is technology we just haven't looked at, but I have noticed that through our shop, a lot of medium duty vehicles, dump trucks, big dump trucks, box trucks, things like this, are going back to gasoline engines. Okay. So I know Bluebird is putting a 7.3 gas motor.
We did.
Okay. All right. Typically, if you walk onto a new vehicle dealership and you look at two brand new pickups, they're exactly the same. One's diesel, one's gas. There's about a $20,000 difference. Would you agree? So what's the difference between a diesel and gas bus? Just on, because what I'm hearing is you're gonna have to come up with about $520,000 out of pocket right now. Okay? $520,000, you can buy 3 brand new diesel buses. Could you buy 5 brand new gas buses?
Yes.
Okay. So if you're talking about the diesel, the mechanical part of it, things like that, oil changes are 3 times as much as gas motor, we know that. You have to have DEF in there, diesel's more expensive. You're looking at 8 miles a gallon maybe on a diesel bus.
Diesel body, yes.
Maybe 6 on gas.
Correct.
So if you figure that gasoline costs $3.50 a gallon right now, diesel costs $4.90 right here in Moorhead. So that very well makes up for the difference in fuel. Okay. I'm just wondering why we're not even approaching that subject where we could have 5 brand new, possibly, school buses. We don't have to worry about an electric charge station. We don't have to worry about retraining mechanics because really there's no EV mechanics in South Florida that I'm aware of. It's hard enough to find one to work on diesel, that's much less gas engine. Okay. So, is that a situation? Granted, the fleet needs to be maintained. Granted, the fleet needs to be upgraded. Not totally agree with that. $15,500 per vehicle per year service contract. On 13, that's $201,000 per year. That's another bus.
Thank you, you've given us something else to think about.
So, Madam Chairman, when do we have to make a decision? Because they keep saying June. We don't have another, we have another meeting in May, because this is an information item, so I'm
Right.
assuming we're not voting today.
Really, the next board meeting we need to. 'cause
We need
we're
to
gonna
have a decision by May 25th is the next board meeting. Okay.
And you will bring a proposal to us.
Yes.
Any highlights, anything that is spectacular that you need to share with us?
It sounds pretty
I
spectacular.
know it does.
I
Anybody?
think I would just say that, you know, with your upgrading these schools, and obviously you've got people moving here with larger rosters and things like that. When we've done this in other parts of the country, we brought electric buses in, the amount of excitement from the kids, and, you know, they're the future of EVs, right? From the cars, trucks, you know, all the excitement in the industry for vehicles that are clean air. It does generate a great amount of energy in the schools, in, you know, in science. We have even curriculum we could share with you for STEM that we've had written by, you know, school teachers that we share in schools, and it's phenomenal feedback. And, you know, the kids today, which is absolutely amazing. So I think that's the partnership we're looking for. We do sponsorships and stuff as well, and help the schools. We see the educational part of this from new technology, from, you know, kids go to schools who want to become, you know, involved in this boost of jobs in the Southeast. I mean, there are companies moving to the Southeast like nowhere else. I mean, from, you know, EV battery companies, charging companies, you know, truck companies like Rivian coming to Georgia, things like that. They're going to put jobs in for our future for our kids. So I think it's very exciting. I think, you're doing the right thing by thinking it through from beginning to end. But, you know, we want to be partners in this and help you get through this, and the difference in the price, if that's something that we can help with as well. You know, we're here as partners, so thank you for your time. We've ran a few times and shared a lot of what we do and how we do it, so.
Well, I've listened to what you said, and there is grants for this. We're not getting grants for regular school buses, but we're trying to upgrade, and it's the right thing to do.
Well, the one, can I say one?
Yes.
The White House administration is pushing EV buses across the board everywhere. In the near future, there's talks of eliminating diesel and gas down the road. And what he brought up is a good point with gasoline. It's a great alternative. Long term, I don't know if it'll still be there, because they're talking about, even with, if you see car commercials at night, even SUVs, everything's starting to go electric. And I know the White House administration is saying by 2035 or 2030, they want to start phasing out diesels and gasoline engines. So long term, I don't know what the answer is, but he does make a valid point with that.
Well, I understand, but we're trying
It's
to
just long
upgrade
term,
and go.
where you want to
yeah.
be, are you know what I mean? That's what it comes down to, so.
Well, I
But
think
this decision is not what's best for next year.
Right.
Decision is not what's
Down the
best for
road.
2 years.
Right.
We're
It's
looking
gonna be
at
long
15
term,
years
right.
out, or we're gonna be in the same situation we are in now,
Yes.
which we have a fleet that's
Down-
deteriorating because it's
About 10
antique.
years, you're correct.
Anybody else?
And I just want to make the point that the only reason we're talking about electrical buses is because of the grant opportunity.
Absolutely.
We were not thinking electric buses. We were gonna plug along and buy one new bus a year like we've always done. And so this created an opportunity for us to maybe change our mindset a little bit. But that's my sticking point, is that in the beginning, it was no upfront cost. The maintenance, the annual contract doesn't bother me, because that might be one less person we have to hire at the barn, right? To keep our buses going, and we have a hard time keeping those mechanics and those people and finding the right person for those jobs. So that annual contract doesn't bother me as much, it's the upfront. But if we can solve that problem through going to maybe a smaller bus, then I would lean more, towards trying it. I mean, I just don't wanna have a big financial investment and then realize 3 or 4 years down the road it didn't work. It's not working out, and now we've gotten rid of 13 buses that did run, so that initial investment is what I'm skeptical of. So when I don't know if anybody else shares that or not, but that's my personal.
You probably caught on there too, that they were willing to help with the finances, so if we had to pay another $20,000 per bus, they could spread that over 15 years, and so that they might add another $1,500 a year we pay her for a bus. That way we wouldn't have that big hit.
Yeah. I'm just not really.
Then if the risk, and the thing is, the money that you would put up front is money that's gone, right? You can't do anything else with that money. If something happens on these buses down the road and we help finance it, you never lost the money. So because that money's still in your district, the bus has to get replaced with another bus, and that's on us. So that upfront cost never comes into consideration. Today, it's a lot of money to think. If we give $500,000 towards these 13 buses, we need this in the school, we need the teacher, we need this, and it's taken away from something that you need. If we can help you in any way to spread that cost over 15 years, so you can get your teacher today, get the school fixed, get whatever you need in the classroom, that just benefits everyone.
If it might cost $16,500 per bus for the next 5 years until we're out of this new school thing. And then if we wanted to, we could pay off that. We don't have to keep paying $16,500 for 15 years. If we still owe $200,000 on that cost, this is what you talked about, then we can actually pay that off 1 year instead of buying a bus.
Right.
Are the other school, you said that there was 2 other school districts in Florida up in the Panhandle that were also recipients of this grant.
Yeah.
The conversations that they're having, are they similar to the ones that we're having, or is there?
No, they're in the exact same place you're at.
Okay.
The bus that they want is more expensive than
Okay.
what the grant is covering. And they're having the same conversations, where's the money coming from, is there a grant available, is there some, other way to pay for the difference? So exact same place you
It sounds like a bait and switch to me.
I tell you, when we saw the price difference, we felt the exact same way.
Yeah.
We have to buy the buses, we also, you know, FTS is buying buses from Bluebird, we buy buses from Bluebird as well, and they change the price on us.
Yeah, yeah.
I would like, if it's possible, I'd like for Brian to possibly speak with the transportation or his counterpart up in those counties to see if maybe the three of us could somehow work together to come up with some out-of-the-box thinking and maybe some, you know, if you could make that happen, I would feel better.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody have anything else? Crystal? I see it coming. I see
So
your
I'm just wondering, I mean, I have a whole bunch of questions, I'm not even gonna ask them, but like, are we gonna do a workshop on this? Are we just gonna meet with Ryan individually? Are we gonna come back on May 25th and make a vote? Are we just each, do y'all wanna independently make up your minds? Or how do we
I think
wanna
that
do
you
it?
need
'Cause
to
it's a big
probably,
decision.
it's a huge decision. I think it's a huge fiscal responsibility of the board. I personally would like for you to each individually reach out to Brian and have those conversations with him.
So,
And then we can bring it back if you wanna do a workshop prior to the board meeting, like maybe 30 minutes before, if you would like to do that, the next board meeting, instead of it starting at, I believe, is it 6? Have it start at 5:30, we'll do a 30-minute workshop on it, and then go into the board meeting and you make your vote.
It's not brand new to me because Mr. Brickle brought it to us years ago. I was the only one that was for it, but looking like that was crazy. I think you were on board then, 4 years ago, when you brought that.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? Thank you very much for
Yes,
coming.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
But how about a break?
Okay, how about a break? How about a 3-minute bathroom break?
Thank you.
I'm first. Thank you for suggesting that. Back, everybody. Item 7 is consent agenda, and I understand that there may be one item that the superintendent needs to pull.
Yes, I need to pull 7.9, I believe. Hold on. Yes, 7.9.
Does anybody have anything else they want to pull before we vote? Okay, I think a motion.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda 7.1 through 7.15 with the exception of 7.9.
I'll second.
No further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. General public comments?
No, ma'am.
Board member comments and business?
Okay.
Yeah, go.
Now, okay, so I want to read something. This is an email I received. I did not ask permission from this person, so I'm gonna leave the name out, and Dr. Daly may be able to figure out who it is. But I wanna read it because it meant a lot to me. It was in relation to the foundation and some support we had given. So it starts off by thank you for supporting Glades County students, but here we go. I don't have words to explain what it is like to work at Moorhaven Middle High School. I have been teaching for most of my I have been teaching a certain subject for most of my 20 years, and this is the only school. Well, I'm gonna have to give away that it's ESE because that is the only thing that fits. This is the only school where I was included in general education activities like speech contests, the Edison home field trip, grade level meetings, not looked over because I only taught ESE. Some schools I was convinced that the state staff believed that because I taught ESE, I was ESE. The school climate and culture here is like no other. Here, the teachers and students don't see color or disability. Everyone is a student and doing their best. I have 4 children of my own. 2 chose to come with me and 2 went to LaBelle Middle School to be with their friends. The two that go to LaBelle Middle School for the first time in their lives are making racial slurs and comments, talking about the Mexican kids did this or that, talking about how the kids divide themselves into groups in the lunchroom, like territories. It is crazy. Here at Moorhaven Middle High School, my kid was bored at lunch, so he brought cards and checkers, and now tables of kids play together during lunch. It is a completely different climate. The middle school teachers that have students with IEPs work with me, emailing, phone calls, talking to me during class changes. That says so much about the climate at that high school. And I think we can thank Dr. Daly for that.
We can.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm crying too, Dr. Daly.
But I knew it though, and I've known it, and I'm gonna miss you. I mean, Glades County's gonna miss you.
That's for sure.
You've been an asset.
And whoever that teacher is, thank you for sending that in, because people do not get praised enough for doing a good job. When things go right, you know, they always find the negative, and you hear the negative, but it's very rare that you hear the positive. So whoever that is, thank you for sending that in as well.
And thank you for sharing it.
Yes.
Amen. Amen.
Okay. Next board member comment. Do you have any more?
No, that's it.
Crystal?
I honestly did not write anything down. I do want to thank, but I'll come up with something, Miss Allen. I'll come up with something. I do want to thank everybody on the board and anybody watching for your support for the scholarship organization. I believe we were able to give out $125,000 to 26 graduates. So I really appreciate, and a lot of you board members have always generously given, and we appreciate it very much.
And that was a very nice program. Thank you for coordinating that.
It's our privilege to do it, and I think our students are blessed, and I don't think they realize how blessed in comparison to surrounding schools they really are.
I think their parents might know, because I've
Yeah.
been thanked by a few.
Yeah, their parents probably appreciate it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because the kids just don't realize where the money comes from, I don't think.
Right.
Well, the kids don't get it, but then the kids that used to be here get it, because my son was a giver this year, and I'm very
Yes.
proud of him for that.
I'm proud of Douglas too, because that is what's going to keep the organization going, are those young people that benefited from it to give back. And we've got several on our board that received the scholarship. So I think finding new board members is going to get easier as those kids rise up and become leaders in our community. And this, I echo Jean's comments about Dr. Daly. Just walking in the school, you feel it. And it's going to be truly missed, truly. That's all.
Patty?
No, I don't want to cry anymore.
Okay. Well, of course we're gonna miss you. I don't know how in the world we're gonna replace you. But you do need to come back and visit and give the new person some hints if they need it.
I think that he might be in the room, this new person, isn't he?
No, that's his,
Oh,
his new
okay.
assistant. Anything else, Mrs. Browant? Dr. Barfield?
Yes, so now that you did say that, I'd like to introduce Sam Thomas. Sam, if you would stand up, you just voted earlier. He is your new assistant principal at Moorhaven Middle High School. I'm very, very proud of Sam, because Sam and I were classmates and friends and graduates of the class of 1990, the best class ever to come through Moorhaven Middle High School. But I've been able to watch Sam grow professionally, and I think he's going to be outstanding. And I think he is definitely future principal material for Moorhaven Middle High School.
That's great.
So I think we're looking that's the future right there. And speaking of the past with Dr. Daly, I can't even barely say much, because I don't want to get on the cry wagon over here next to me. But you know, that is Dr. Daly's legacy, is that he, you know, and the things that you were saying about, you know, inclusion of kids, and, you know, the not seeing color, and, you know, I don't think, we all know racism exists, but it's different in Moorhaven. And, you know, we're in a very special place. And when people see that, they understand what makes it so special here, why we're such a special and unique place. So Dr. Daly is definitely his input, his professional judgment on things. We're gonna miss him, and he won't be gone for long. You know, he'll come back. You know, we do have to go through accreditation, so he'll be our in there. I just wanted to continuing on with that. As you know, with the new testing, in 2014, Glades County School District was a B district. And since then, we have been a C district. We are getting, all indicators are looking that we're gonna break it this year. Looks like we've got 2 schools that are in the A category, a B, and a possibly C is where we look at like right now. So that would put us at a B district, but that's not 100%. Right now, testing is still going on, so there's a lot that can change. West Glades has tested all of their students for math. So math is completely done at West Glades, and they're at a 64% proficiency, which is way above the state average. They will be testing reading next week. Warhaven Elementary School has tested both reading and math. And 32%, this is for, third grade, I need to put my glasses on, is at 52% proficiency in reading and 55% in math. And I just want to say, if this year Gaines is not included in your letter grade, but if it was, just Gaines alone, Moorhaven would be probably at a B, because they are blowing it out of the water with their Gaines scores. Their math is a 40%, fourth grade is 40% proficiency in reading and 36 for math. And fifth grade, a 46% for reading and 37% for math. And like I said, just in Gaines scores alone, but we don't get Gaines scores this year, but proficiency, they're doing amazing. Moorhaven Middle High School, they are still testing. And I can tell you, right now, there is about a 33% proficiency in reading. However, all of the end of courses are showing huge gains, which would be Algebra 1, Civics, and our SAT scores. And so we know that 17 of our seniors are going to have an AA degree when they walk across that stage, which that is amazing, considering we only have 53 in the graduating class. So that's something very positive. Our graduation rate, we met yesterday with the high school guidance counselor and Miss Brown to go over, where we were as far as how many students have not passed their tests. But Friday is a big day for several of our seniors. There's many of them only need one test, and they're going to be taking it on Friday, and they'll get the results right then. I mean, it's immediate. So if in your thoughts and prayers for several of our seniors, because this will be it. This will be the deciding factor. But our graduation rate is going to be higher than it was the year before. So everything is looking really good. I'm very excited that the school board agreed to the Ron Clark Academy trip for our teachers. Our teachers are extremely excited about it. And I think it's really good that you're investing time and money into those teachers, making sure that they're learning the most up-to-date practices. And, sometimes as a teacher, you feel like you don't really get the opportunity to see what's going on in other schools and other districts. And Ron Clark is notorious, and his practices are worldwide. And so our teachers are going to go up there. I made a requirement that it had to be a classroom teacher. So there's no administrators going, it's all classroom teachers, because that's where it's going to start. That's going to be the front lines. And I know our administrators are going to hear a lot of great things. They're probably going to be inundated with, let's do this, let's do that. And that's what I'm hoping for. And how
many teachers are going?
I believe we're up to 17.
Okay, good.
17. And what I did, I sent it out to all 3 schools, and I asked them, the only 2 caveats were number one, you had to be a classroom teacher. And number two, you could not be on any sick, or if you were working leave without pay, you could not attend.
Okay.
So those were the only two. I just feel like that, this is going to change our district.
Okay, you were just showing me it was on.
I believe that's really all I know. Your calendars are getting very filled. I know Jackie is making sure that you have every program, every graduation. We did not put prom on there because the board is not invited, since it's an away trip. The board wasn't invited, so we didn't put prom on there. But anything that you all are invited to, obviously, it's great if one or two of us can be there. I know the month of May, we're all going to be very, very, very busy. So we'll be seeing a lot of each other. But other than that, I don't have anything else. Yes, ma'am?
Did you have the civic scores?
So, found out yesterday, the civic scores that have been turned in are the civic scores that are Mrs. Moss's, and she had 100% pass rate. 17 of 17 passed that. I thought the other was Mrs. Odom's civic scores, which, am I correct? Mr. Holligan and Mr. Clark's are going to be next week.
Yes.
And we are expecting those to be extremely high.
So there's a new requirement for high school kids to
Yes,
take?
ma'am.
Is it the same test or a different test?
It's a,
I think it's, there's not a new law, the governor passed, they have passed the civics test now.
Correct.
For high school,
Does it go with their American?
The seventh grade one is one that's normal now, that they're taking next week, Mr. Hodge and Mr. Clark, that's one that we're normally.
Right. And I think, did West Glades, have you got West Glades scores? Because I think they took theirs.
let me see, hold on.
So the new civics requirement is for seniors? And they take it in their government class or something?
They took out Ms. Moss this year, I don't know what we're gonna fit in for next year, I don't know the actual criteria.
That's the one that they 100% passing, which will be tied in with our overall score.
Mr. Boyle sends me, he does an amazing job sending me all kinds of, okay, here we go, let's see. I get, and I can send these to you all as a board. The only reason I haven't is because these numbers aren't solid, because I was talking with the principal, last night. It can change in a matter of hours, because as the scores get uploaded, it could change. But I can send you whatever Mr. Boyle sends me, if that would, unless I say this is the final, just don't, West Glades, so this was as of 5/6, and their 8th grade was at 70% proficient. Their 7th grade was at 66 proficient. 6th grade was at 64 proficient. 3rd grade was at 69 proficient. Paymietta and Mohaga, their 8th grade, and this is ELA, was at 77% proficient. 7th grade, 77% proficient. 5th grade, 80% proficient. 5th grade, 100% proficient. So I will, as soon as I get these from Mr. Boyles, I will forward to the board members, but just please know that they're not final, and they could change in an hour.
I thought those were civic scores you were reading.
Oh, no.
You scared me there for a second.
No.
I mean, in a good way. I thought it was 70% civic. That's okay. You can just send me what you have.
Anybody have anything else?
I did want to add that is it Mr. Browning having the school
Yes.
musical? And a lot of our kids have been saying how much fun they're having in it, and they're ready to put on their play, or I guess it's not a play, what do you call it?
Musical. It's a musical.
Friday at 7 and Saturday at 3.
Yes.
$5 admission.
Worth every penny.
And the FBLA music bingo is tonight with taco bar included. $10, I believe it is. That's at 5 o'clock.
Go to my grandson's ball game.
Okay, anybody have anything else? Thank you, everybody. I'll adjourn the meeting and happy